In recent years, the dynamics between Saudi Arabia and the United States, once considered close allies, have undergone a seismic shift. This relationship, foundational to the modern global economy, is now fraught with tension. But what lies behind this rift, and what could it mean for the future of global power structures? To unravel this, we must delve deep into a historic partnership that once defined the trajectory of both nations. Welcome back to another video from Being Mysterious. Viewers, the story of US-Saudi ties begins in 1933, a pivotal year in modern history. King Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia granted Standard Oil of California the right to explore and extract oil within its borders. At the time, Saudi Arabia was an isolated desert kingdom, struggling economically and lacking infrastructure. Then, in 1938, everything changed. The discovery of vast oil reserves at the Dammam Dome transformed Saudi Arabia into an economic powerhouse virtually overnight. This was not merely a boon for Saudi Arabia, but also for the United States, which secured access to one of the largest oil reserves in the world. By 1945, the US and Saudi Arabia formalized their relationship through a landmark agreement between US President Franklin D. Roosevelt and King Ibn Saud. The terms were simple yet revolutionary. Saudi Arabia would supply oil to the US exclusively in US dollars, while the US would provide military protection and advanced weaponry. This deal birthed the Petrodollar system, solidifying the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency and binding Saudi Arabia's economic prosperity to America's financial strength. For decades, this symbiotic relationship thrived. Saudi Arabia emerged as the linchpin of global oil production, and the US dollar became the backbone of international trade. Together, the two nations wielded unparalleled influence in geopolitics and the global economy. Despite this enduring partnership, Saudi Arabia's independence in foreign policy was evident from the outset. Unlike its Gulf neighbors, Saudi Arabia resisted hosting permanent US military bases on its soil, maintaining its sovereignty while balancing the strategic advantages of its alliance with Washington. In contrast, countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar became hubs for US forces, hosting thousands of American troops. During critical moments, Saudi Arabia's independence streak became even more apparent. In 1990, during the Gulf War, Saudi Arabia reluctantly allowed US troops to operate within its borders to repel Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. However, the presence of foreign troops sparked domestic unrest and criticism, underscoring the kingdom's cautious approach to US military involvement. Earlier, in 1967 and 1973, Saudi Arabia spearheaded Arab oil embargoes against Western nations, supporting Israel during the Arab-Israeli wars. These embargoes shocked the global economy, demonstrating Saudi Arabia's willingness to wield oil as a political weapon, even at the expense of its allies. The unraveling of US-Saudi relations began in earnest in the 2010s. One of the most significant turning points was the Obama administration's decision to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran, Saudi Arabia's regional rival. For decades, Saudi leaders had relied on US support to counterbalance Iran's influence in the Middle East. The nuclear deal, therefore, felt like a betrayal, signaling a potential shift in US priorities. The strain deepened under President Joe Biden, who openly criticized Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for his alleged involvement in the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Biden's administration also raised concerns over Saudi Arabia's human rights record, further alienating the kingdom. The once unshakable bond between the two nations seemed increasingly fragile. At the center of Saudi Arabia's evolving strategy is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, a transformative yet controversial leader. Under his ambitious Vision 2030 plan, MBS aims to modernize Saudi Arabia, diversifying its economy to reduce dependence on oil. Social reforms, such as allowing women to drive and opening cinemas, have signaled a break from the kingdom's conservative past. However, these changes come with significant challenges. Saudi Arabia's population is young, 65% are under 35 years old, and accustomed to generous government subsidies and a high standard of living. The job market, dominated by the oil and government sectors, must adapt to accommodate a more dynamic, private sector-driven economy. Balancing these economic reforms with social expectations has proven to be one of MBS's most formidable tasks. The Russia-Ukraine war has further complicated global dynamics, creating both challenges and opportunities for Saudi Arabia. As Europe sought alternatives to Russian energy, Saudi Arabia's oil exports surged, boosting its economy. However, the US expected Saudi Arabia to increase oil production to stabilize global markets. Instead, Saudi Arabia took the opposite approach, cutting oil production to drive up prices, thereby increasing its revenues. This decision, viewed by many as a snub to the US, highlighted Saudi Arabia's willingness to prioritize its interests over those of its long-standing ally. Moreover, Saudi Arabia's deepening ties with China and Russia have raised concerns in Washington. In 2022, Saudi Arabia and China announced a series of agreements, including discussions on trading oil in Chinese yuan rather than US dollars. If Saudi Arabia shifts away from the petrodollar system, the implications for the US economy could be devastating. The petrodollar system has been a cornerstone of US economic dominance for nearly 8 decades. By requiring countries to trade oil in dollars, the system has ensured consistent global demand for the US currency. This, in turn, has allowed the US to borrow and spend far beyond its means without facing the economic consequences that other nations would. If Saudi Arabia adopts the petrodollar system, it could trigger a financial crisis in the US, weakening the dollar's global standing and reducing America's ability to influence global markets. The potential ripple effects could include inflation, higher borrowing costs, and a decline in US economic power. Despite these bold moves, Saudi Arabia remains deeply intertwined with the US economy. Over 73% of Saudi Arabia's military imports come from American defense companies, and the kingdom holds approximately $800 billion in US assets. Any drastic shift away from the US risks destabilizing its own economy. Additionally, while China and Russia offer alternatives, they cannot fully replace the US as a military and economic partner. China's yuan, for instance, lacks the global trust and liquidity of the dollar, making it a risky choice for international trade. Similarly, Russia's economic and geopolitical influence is limited compared to that of the US. History suggests that global power structures shift every 100 to 150 years. As the US reduces its dependence on Middle Eastern oil and transitions to renewable energy and electric vehicles, Saudi Arabia is reevaluating its place on the world stage. The kingdom's strategic moves, including its partnerships with China, Russia, and other BRICS nations, reflect a broader attempt to challenge US dominance and assert itself as a leader in a multipolar world. The rise of the petro-yuan, if it materializes, could be a harbinger of this new world order. However, the road ahead is fraught with uncertainty. Saudi Arabia's ability to navigate this transition without jeopardizing its own stability or alienating key partners will be critical. Saudi Arabia's efforts to shake America's economic dominance represent both a calculated risk and a bold vision for the future. Whether these moves will succeed in reshaping the global order or backfire remains to be seen. One thing is certain, the next decade will be pivotal not just for Saudi Arabia and the US, but for the entire world. What do you think about Saudi Arabia's bold moves? Is it a calculated step toward a new world order? A risky gamble that could destabilize global markets? Every alliance begins with trust and ends with interest. As the petrodollar wavers, a new script for power is being written. The question is not if the balance will shift, but who will hold the pen when it does. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you people in next great video.